Thanks for joining me once again. You're watching part 2 of the Forgotten Finesse Technique video. If you haven't watched that first video, go back and give that one a shot, and that'll give you more information on what we're doing today, and it might help you absorb some of the information that you get in this video. What I want to do today is go over the rig real quickly. I want to talk about some of the little minor details that you don't pick up on when you just see a guy out there catching fish. Angles that I'm using when I'm fishing this rig, what I'm feeling for. I'll also talk about the tide that I was fishing. I'll talk about the moon phases. I'll talk about when I was planning my trip, what I was looking for to be in the spot that I was when I thought the bite window was going to happen. So let me get in a spot where we can get the right camera angle, and I want to talk about some minor details on how you can fine-tune this particular technique. We'll go over those, then we'll get right into the fish catches. All right, let's get into this technique real quick before we get into the fish catches. A 7-foot spinning rod, medium action, 2500 reel, 30 to 40 pound test braid. As a top shot on that braid, I've got about 10 feet of leader, and that can be 8 to 10 pound either mono or fluoro. Today I'm using mono. The rig here is real simple. I've got a split shot about 14 inches above an inline worm hook, and today I'm using worms. With this technique you can use both worms and creature baits, but I primarily use worms. Now this technique is excellent year round. It's excellent in deep water lakes, it's excellent in rivers. Anywhere there's bass, this technique will catch fish. I particularly really rely on this technique during the winter months when the water temperature is below 50 degrees and the fish are looking for something that is drugged very slowly along the bottom. One thing that you want to think about is, like any technique, any worming technique, if you're drop shotting or T-rigging or Carolina rigging, you're always thinking about switching around your sizes and colors, and you want to think about doing that with this rig, but you also want to think about the buoyancy of your worm. And I'll get back to fishing it slow along the bottom, and think about this. If you have something like a Cinco, something with a lot of salt in it, that's a heavy worm that drops to the bottom and it can get buried in the vegetation, think about what's happening. That Cinco is dropping down there, and as it gets lost in the vegetation, it only has drawing power for about a foot or two of fish in that area because they can't see it. Now, they can hear it coming through vegetation. They'll know it's there as it's crawling through, but they don't have a good sight, visual on that worm. If you were to switch that worm out and put a neutral buoyant worm like a Z-Man that's going to ride up above the vegetation, then they have a visual. So the drawing power of a neutral buoyant worm that's up above the vegetation, they can see it for 4 or 5 feet away. They can also hear it just like they can, anything else running through there, but they also have the visual on that. So think about, when you're using this technique, not only color and size, but the buoyancy of your worm. So the technique here is very simple. You're going to throw it out, let the bait fall to the bottom, and one of the things that's really important is to point the rod tip towards the bait and use the reel to retrieve the bait. Whether you're on a kayak, bass boat, whatever you're fishing out of, you're not going to be able to get that exact angle all day long. Depending on how the boat is situated, you may have more of an angle where the line is coming off at a 40-degree angle from your tip, and you may have to twitch the bait through vegetation. That's not exactly what we want to do in this particular technique, but that will catch fish. And certain days you'll find that maybe you want to twitch that bait and animate it more when the fish are more active. But basically what we're going to try to do is just reel through and drag it through. And there's a big difference. When you're twitching it through and the rod is loading up, it acts like a catapult. So when that worm pops through vegetation, it may pop through a foot or 2 feet, and it's a real jump and a real jerky pop. When you are pointing the rod tip and reeling through, like right now, I could feel that I'm in some vegetation. I'm not going to pop it through. I'm just going to reel it through. That time it didn't get stuck. It came right through. But as if you're reeling it through, as it pops through, it's just going to come through and stop. And that's a lot of times the fish will hear it pop through and they'll come out and you'll get that bite right after you kind of free it up. Now, another thing that you can do if you're not familiar with this technique, because it does take a few times for you feeling the bite and catching fish before you get confidence in it. One thing you can do is just simply point your rod at the bait and lift your line up and feel it drag through. And sooner or later you'll get that. Right now I've got some resistance. I'm not going to pop it through. I'm just going to pull it through. And it just came through. Raise the rod, drop it down, and just fish like this for a while so you can feel that bait. Right now there's not a whole lot of resistance on it. But when I come up through some vegetation, I'm gonna hang up and I'm gonna know just how much I have to pop through to get it through there. And that may give you an idea of how slow and methodical you have to use, bring this bait in. The other thing is, a lot of times this is your regular grip on the rod. One thing that I like to do, I'll pull my finger out and I'll put it right on the rod, and that does two things for me. Let me throw it out here again. It allows me to have my finger on the graphite rod, and if I have contact with that bait, anything that touches it, I can differentiate a fish grabbing that or it coming through the weeds. I feel like I have a better feel, and also it just gives me a little better feel with the rod in general. So think about that and working with that technique of keeping the bait coming through vegetation slowly and using the reel to get it through the vegetation. So one last thing before we get into the video or the catches. Notice how my boat is set up right now. And this is just for demonstration. I'm pulled way into the bank. I am basically right on the inside ledge. On this particular bank, let's just say the ledge is out about 10 feet. There are two ways that I will position my boat. I'll position them in real close so that I'll throw it out on the other side of the ledge and drag it into the ledge and over the ledge into shallow water. Now the other technique, depending on the tide, how much water you have in the shallow water, how deep it is in the deeper water, lots of variables here. But the other technique would be positioning my boat out 15 or 20 feet off the bank and making the cast in close and then dragging it over the ledge into deeper water. So the boat's in tight, you're throwing to deeper water, dragging it into shallow water, or positioning the boat on the outside or your kayak and pulling that bait from the shallow water into the deep water over the ledge. And as we get into the video today, I'll explain exactly why I'm positioning the boat where it is, and I'll try to let you guys know as I'm making that cast where it's hitting the ledge and where I'm getting the bites. So let's get into the fish catches. So on this day, I knew I'd have about 4 or 5 hours on the water. I wasn't going to be moving around a lot. I knew I had to be in my prime spot at the prime time. So the first thing I did was check out the app Tides for Fishing. I went directly to the moon phase chart. I saw that there was a lot of salooner activity approximately between about 12:30 and 2:30. I corresponded that with the tides, and it looked like it was going to be a high incoming tide at that same period. So I knew I wanted to be on the water between about 12:30 and 2:30. Sure enough, I got out on the water about 10:30. I did not have a bite until about 12:30, and I had about a 45-minute bite window. Really nice bite window. When you get these bite windows, you have to be ready. You have to be on the water that you want to be fishing, and you have to maximize that short period of time when the fish are going to be most active. Let's go over this fish from cast to catch. On this particular bank, the drop-off is about 10 or 12 feet offshore. My boat is positioned off the ledge in about 6 feet of water. I made the cast up within a foot of the bank in 1 to 2 feet of water, and I'm working the bait very slowly through the vegetation until I can feel it drop off of that ledge. On this particular cast, it paid off perfectly. I got the bait to the ledge. As it hit that ledge where I suspected the fish to be, the fish picked it up right where I thought it should pick it up, and I was able to catch the fish. So boat positioning and working the bait very slowly on this particular fish really paid off. A little bit of sit-down fishing. So we're just down the bank a ways from where we caught that first fish. The tide is coming in, and we have a little deeper water up next to the bank now. So my thought is that the fish will be coming from the deep water, moving in towards the shore, taking advantage of the deeper water nearer to the shore. So what I'm doing is I'm positioning my boat right over the ledge. I'm making a long cast into the bank, maybe a foot or two off the bank, and I want to keep my bait in the prime position. Remember, I'm thinking that those fish are coming from deep water now and feeding up on the ledge. So by keeping my boat in tight, I can work that bait slowly right along the inside of the ledge, not the outside, but the inside of the ledge where those fish are pulling up because of the high tide. It always feels good when you make the right decision and you wind up catching a fish. Okay, so for this last fish catch, we're on the same bank, but we're down farther, and it's a little shallower in here. So you see I have my boat positioned offshore again. I'm still casting up very close to shore, and I'm working my bait very slowly out to the ledge. If there's anything up on top of that ledge, I want to show those fish my bait, and I want to catch those fish, but I'm really suspecting most of the fish are going to be 5, 6, 7 feet off the shore, right around that ledge somewhere. And by fishing it slowly to the ledge, once again it paid off. This fish took it right at the ledge. A big mistake would have been to work the bait very slowly out to the ledge and then speed the bait up. This technique takes patience, and you'll find throughout the day the fish will move around. You'll have to probe not only the shallow water, not only the ledges, but also the deeper water. So when you're fishing this technique, just remember to be patient, be methodical, and just go out and have fun. I guarantee you the fish will come. Okay, I hope I explained that to you guys logically. I know there's a lot of little things in there that, don't get talked about a lot, but these are the little things that are going to bring you to that next level. And I can guarantee you, for you new anglers out there that haven't done a lot of cold water fishing and you don't really understand how slow and methodical it can be, there will be a light bulb moment sooner or later when you're trying this technique where you're very frustrated and you're trying everything that you can do to just keep moving slow and doing some of the things that we talked about, and then all of a sudden you're going to get that bite, you're going to set hook on it, and at that point you're going to go, man, I didn't think these fish could find that bait. I don't know how that fish found it. I don't know how this technique works, but it works. And once you get that little bit of confidence, it's going to create a domino effect, and you're going to be able to fish slower for longer periods of time, and the fish are going to start coming more and more, and you're going to get bigger fish with this technique too. So if this has helped you, make sure you hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and hey, it wouldn't be bad to share it with a fishing friend of yours. Tell them to watch In Deep on the Delta, and I want to just thank you guys for watching once again. With that, I'll see you guys on the water.